S to the F to the A.
Yes. Hello, Veedu.
Hey, how's it going, bro?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I mean, you can't talk about anything else today, man. It's all about BLM.
It's all about BLM. Okay, are you speaking from the UK or US or whatever? I mean,
UK, yeah.
have I spoken to you before? I feel like I know your voice.
Yeah, we've spoken at Speaker's Corner before.
You sound very familiar.
Yeah. I interviewed you at Speaker's Corner before. We spoke about free.
Yes, I knew it. How you doing, bro?
Free speech.
Free speech. Yes, I remember that conversation. See, I remember your voice. I'm like, this guy's got a smooth voice. I was like, this guy's got a smooth voice, bro. How you doing, man? Bro? You good?
Yeah, not too bad, man, not too bad.
Good stuff, man.
It's good that more channels are opening up their platform and not just having a echo chamber.
Yeah, 100%, man. This is why. I mean, I don't mind speaking to anyone. Honestly, I don't have any rules, any regulations. You have to do this. You have to do that. As long as you have open chat, I've got no problem, bro. So how can I help you today, brother? Tell me, how can I help you?
Yeah, well, what's it for me? It's just about like the agnostic and atheist thing. How do you view that? It's a bit confusing.
So, as far as I'm aware, and someone else can correct me if I'm wrong, whatever. But the way I understand it, an atheist is someone who doesn't believe there's a God. Agnostic is someone who doesn't know. Like, big question mark. Is there a God? Is there not a God? I have no idea. Someone who's an atheist agnostic, some that's what I am. I say I don't think there is a God, but there's absolutely no way I can 100% prove that to you. So,
well, would it
it's
be
like
fair?
95%, let's say. I don't think there is, but I can't prove that to you. So that's where I would say I'm an atheist agnostic or agnostic atheist, whatever you want to call it.
So would it be fair in saying that you base your life on what you know?
Yeah, I suppose most people on some level do, but yeah.
So doesn't that make atheism irrelevant then? The word atheism.
Atheism is relating to God, whether there's a supernatural being outside of this universe or in this universe. It's not like
but you want to know if God exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's got nothing to do with belief. Belief then becomes irrelevant.
Okay, so you're saying, why is the word atheist? When it comes to,
I think humans, because religious people are believers.
Yeah.
People who don't believe in God, then belief or disbelief then becomes irrelevant, because now all you've based your life on is what you know.
Yep.
Through evidence and through test. So for me, it doesn't make sense to be an agnostic and an atheist, because your life is not based on what you believe. Your life is based on what you know.
So that's a very good point. So I don't know for 100%. There is no God.
I know, but that's an agnostic. So
practically
atheist becomes irrelevant. Yeah.
No. On a day-to-day basis, I act as if there is no God. That's my atheism. On a practical level, to me, I don't wake up every day thinking, is there God? Is there not God? I don't think there is. So that's what atheism.
No, I'm not saying. Yeah. I'm not saying you think.
That's what.
No, but the term is. No, but the term becomes irrelevant, because your life is not based on believing things. Your life is based on knowing.
People believe things, even if they're atheist or not atheist or Muslim or not. People believe stuff all the time. Like I say, I believe in a certain political ideology, or I believe this is the best way to live your life, whatever it is. People believe all sorts of stuff.
No, when we're talking about things existing.
Yep.
When we talk about things existing, you don't believe. You want to know.
Right.
So atheism becomes irrelevant, right? The belief or disbelief becomes irrelevant, because your life is not based on believing something. Your life is based on knowing things, right?
So the definition of an atheist is a person who disbelieves or lacks belief. So I lack belief in the existence of a God. That is what an atheist is. I don't have the belief you have. If I had the belief, I would be a theist or a Muslim or whatever. But if I don't have that belief, I'm an atheist. That's the definition.
But your true identity is seeking what you know, not lacking something. Like my identity is based on lacking a belief in Christianity. I say my identity is based on being a Muslim.
Yeah. So that's a good
So
point.
that's for some.
So
Yeah.
Christian, Muslim.
So you would be an agnostic, not an atheist. Yeah.
So okay, so 2 points. What you said is actually technically true. Atheist, a Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jew, whatever. These are all positive beliefs because you're affirming something. You're saying, I think the world is this way, or I believe there's a God who wants X, Y, Z. That's a positive thing, right? You're saying you're asserting something. An atheist or agnostic is not. I'm not asserting anything. I'm not asserting what you're asserting. So that's where the lack of belief comes from. I'm not. It's the negative of it's the opposite side of the coin of I believe X is the right way or the right heaven, hell, whatever it is. I don't think it's that big of a big deal. I think it's just a definition thing.
No, it's not a big deal, but I'm just saying it becomes irrelevant. I'm just saying because,
fair enough. If that's your opinion, I mean, it's just a practical way for me to classify what I believe or not believe, whatever you want to call it. But,
no, but it's the identity bit. It's the identity because the atheist thing is a big movement, right? It's not something that's small.
It depends how you define movement because there are many atheists that I disagree with, and I would not want to share my views. Like I don't share views with them. So, for example, you are a Muslim.
Yeah.
There are some Muslims, for example, there are some Muslims I know, and I'm not saying I personally know this because I was speaking to them and I had this long ass conversation. So I had a friend, right, who was a Sufi. He's a Sufi Muslim. So he was like, me and him were like taking the mic or whatever it was. We were talking about some Salafi guy. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. What he said was stupid. But then I was being honest with him and saying, bro, some of the stuff that Sufis do is kind of stupid as well. No, it's not. No, it's not. What are you getting? So I was like, hang on. Like, you are like making fun of the Salafi guy as a Sufi. But when I point the finger at you, then you get very defensive. And then this is actually true. I was speaking to him. I said, do you think like Dawah Man or any of these Salafi guys, they're Muslims? And he said, no, I don't think. I said, you don't think they're Muslims? Now, even as a Muslim and even as an ex-Muslim, I still think those guys are Muslim. I might disagree with their views, but, broadly speaking, they're Muslim. But he would say, no, they are not Muslim, right? So simply being under a term like atheist or Muslim, it doesn't really, when you say Muslim movement, which Muslim movement? The Shia one, the Sunni one, the Sufi one, the Salafi one, the Deobandi, the Reformist, the Quranist, the Ahl Hadith, which one? It doesn't mean that much. On a practical level. So when you say atheist movement, there are atheists who are left wing, there are atheists who are right wing, there are atheists who will support Black Lives Matter, there are atheists who will be very much against Black Lives Matter, there will be atheists who support Trump. There'll be atheists who think Trump is a devil. So I mean, movement is not very I get what you're saying. But on a practical level,
I'm not saying movement as in I'm not saying movement as in the political sort of meaning to it. I'm talking about the in terms of the identity. So if you were to ask someone, "What are you?" they would off the back say, "I'm an atheist." But really and truly, you don't live like an atheist because your life is based on what you. Because the reason why I say they don't live like atheists, I'm telling you. So the atheist, his life is built on knowing things, right? He doesn't accept something that he doesn't know to be true.
That's a very only when it comes to religion. Because atheists that are very stupid and believes all sorts of stuff. By the way, don't think an atheist they wake up in the morning with a calculator or some sort of microscope and okay, what do I know today? It's not how it works.
Okay, so what is it that makes a rational belief then?
So if this is me off the top of my head, I'm not a scientist or philosopher, but I'm assuming that you would have to do some sort of research. You have evidence-based research. Reason would be in the discussion. You would not take massive leaps in faith when it comes to knowing about stuff. And you would, even if I don't know 100% of the details or facts about a certain situation, you'd have to make an educated guess. And you always leave some room for doubt. What I find in religion is that there's no room for doubt. In fact, doubt is from the shaitan and all that kind of stuff. But I would say you need to have a healthy level of skepticism and doubt in what you're doing because you could be wrong. If I'm a scientist today with my evidence, I'm saying one thing. 100 years from now, some other scientists might have better technology and say, actually, what that guy said 100 years ago is wrong. And that happens many times with Einstein, with Isaac Newton, with all these guys that we say they made massive contributions. but they were human beings. They're not prophets, or they're not infallible. They make mistakes. They have limited understanding of things, and it's our job as human beings who are skeptical to always correct ourselves.
But
So
you said but you said evidence.
Good. Looking for like a silver bullet, like what one method or one thing is going to answer all the questions. That doesn't exist in real life. From a point of religion, I understand where you're coming from, because you have one book or one prophet or one God that answers all the questions. In reality, that does not exist. And people are really not, maybe some scared, maybe are uncomfortable with the idea of, but what if I don't know? And I'm saying, as a atheist agnostic, you need to get comfortable in the idea that you're not going to know the answer to everything in life. You're not going to know the answer to everything in life. You can always give educated guesses, or you can make an estimate. You can say, I think with the information I have, this is the best thing to do. If something else changes down the road, I might reevaluate my opinion. That's how I live my life. I don't think I know the answer to everything. That's a very arrogant way to think about life. Like, oh, I've got it all covered, bro. I've got it all covered.
So why would you say a belief in a creator is irrational? Why would you think that?
This is a whole different question. I mean, I'm not convinced by any of the sort of Christian, Muslim, or Abrahamic, let's say, because Hinduism and Eastern religion is very different. And
no, just let's say God. Yeah. Just let's say God.
Let's say one God. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced, rationally speaking, or even scientifically or logically, whatever you want to call it, that there exists a thing as a God. Number one.
Why do you think it's irrational?
So I'm getting to that. So the arguments that have been presented so far are things like, something must have created this universe. It can't come into existence just by itself. Okay. So the next question, obviously, is, well, then if this can't come into existence by itself, then how does God come into existence by itself? And then if you say, well, God is the uncaused cause, then I can say, well, why can't the universe be an uncaused cause? Like, this universe, as we know, it began with the Big Bang. And before the Big Bang happened, there was no time, there was no space. As far as we know, there's nothingness, right? We don't know what happened before that. There's a massive, massive question mark. We don't know what happened before that. And what we can say is that energy is always transferred from one form into the other. So if you burn like wood, it becomes fire, heat energy, sound energy, light energy, but that energy gets recycled back into the universe in one form or the other. So you can posit, I have no proof, I have no evidence, you can say the universe was in a different form before it was in the form that we know. This is one theory, this is one thing. And it does not require me to have a belief in a God or belief in a prophet or belief in heaven, hell. All these things are not proven. There's no evidence for these things. The only thing you have is a book that was either 1,400 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or 3,000 years ago. And people back then had no knowledge of science. So why am I going to rely upon those people who had literally no understanding of science and how the world works today to base my belief of the universe? That's very irrational.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not coming from the perspective of what we know. No one was at the beginning. No one was there at the Big Bang. Mm-hmm. No one saw that happen. What I am asking is, what is rational to believe? Do you think that the natural order we have in the universe came from a result of randomness? Because that's the only option we have.
So, could you elaborate what you mean by randomness?
So, if a person doesn't believe that the universe was created, the only other option that person has is to believe that it was random. So if I look at the definition of random, it says made, done, or happening without method or conscious decision. Okay. Made, done. If you go to Google right now, it says made, done, or happening without method or conscious decision.
Yeah.
That's random. So how do we get natural order from randomness?
So that's a massive assumption. So what looks random to you or me as the human eye may not be random in the way you're describing it, firstly. And secondly, when you say natural order, what do you mean by that? Because that's a very loaded term. What's
natural
the
order, for example, like the ecosystem, for example. The ecosystem is a system that works, certain elements work together to form our ecosystem basically, certain elements. Like let me just go here 1 second. So like even the word system, how do we get a system from randomness? It doesn't make sense.
I
So
mean,
for example,
these are very easily answered
ecosystem.
questions. I mean, you
Yeah,
can
so
just
so
do
the ecosystem
research
is
into
a
ecosystems and see how things
yeah.
work.
So the ecosystem is a biological
You're gone.
yeah a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment.
Hmm.
So how do we get these organisms that work together from randomness without any conscious decision? Like how does that because
So you're
that's the
saying
only other option you have.
so okay. So
Because
leave it at that.
because if this is a result of a conscious decision, then we have to ask ourselves who made that conscious decision, right? But if it's not a matter of conscious decision, then it's random.
So let me understand that you
So
think
how
like
do we get a system?
okay. So you're saying if like a volcano explodes, there's God saying explode the volcano.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we have an ecosystem, a
Yeah.
community of interacting organisms,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If so we have two options. If we say that there is a conscious decision, then we have to ask ourselves, what do we call that conscious decision? If we're saying there is no conscious decision behind it, then we're saying it's random. It's just that simple.
Okay. And if it's random, so
Because
what?
that is because that is the definition of random. Something
Okay,
that's
but
done
I'm saying,
without any
okay,
conscious
so I
decision.
understand. I understand your question. So if it's random, then what? So what? So what if it is random?
I'm saying how do we get
Well, we
get
got it
order
here.
from randomness?
Because
Yeah,
those
and I'm
things
saying,
collide.
do you? I know, but do you think it's rational to get order from randomness?
You can, of course, you can, because those
How?
things collide. Okay, I'm trying to say there are
Yeah.
so many things in the ecosystem that are competing against each other, right? So when those things,
Randomly, they're competing randomly.
yes. I mean, I don't mean to be
Mm,
facetious, but I mean, like even in
yeah,
chemistry, like Brownian motion, the way the particles move on the surface,
yeah.
they act randomly, but there's patterns and all this kind of stuff. This stuff is like very easily explained by ecologists, like chemists, physicists. The way forget about like the the way the ecosystem moves, even the way
Mm,
particles move, and so on and so forth.
mhm.
There's many ways you can explain this, and like I said, things that look random to us, but if you got forces like gravity is a force, you got all these the nuclear force, all these kind of stuff. So again, I think I would say, like, I'm not a scientist, so I can give you like a 1, 2, 3 kind of explanation to this, but there are so many ways you can explain these things without having a god involved. Literally, like we built cars and like engines, like medicine, building aeroplanes based on the physics and the chemistry and the biology of all the things we know, and it works. And none of it
But with
requires
those,
God.
yeah, no. But with those that you've just mentioned, cars, airplanes, and all of that, those things have a conscience behind it. Human beings. So
No, but the metal doesn't have a conscience behind it. But the actual
No, I'm
chemical
not talking about the
reactions have a
metal.
No, but that's what I'm saying. These are the same forces.
I'm not talking about that. When we create a car, we create a system, right? It's a system. A car is a system. It's
Right.
it's a set of things working together to form one thing, right?
So let me ask you a question. Would you say would you say a complex system requires a creator?
What I'm saying is, when I observe systems that we have made, right? It's logical to believe that the system we have naturally also has a maker. Because how do we?
So then,
why would we?
Okay, let me ask you this, because this is where you're gonna have an own go. And this is I seen Ali Dawa asked the same question on Speaker's Corner, and he had no answer, right? Or I think he asked the question, but someone else asked him back, right? So he said, "Is this tissue paper like, I don't know, some like complex, whatever, or compared to like a watch or whatever, like, or whatever it was, like, oh, this is the watchmaker's argument. If you saw a watch in the middle of a beach, you were like, what the hell? It wouldn't come randomly, all this kind of stuff, something which is so complex and so finely tuned is not just built out of random metals just flying around in the air. Okay, fair enough. So this universe is very complex. So a car is, let's start with a car. A car is complex, right? A system, like you said, and the thing that must have made it must also be somewhat complex. So we are, as far as we know it, the most complex thing in the universe. Our brain, the way it works, right? So if the car is the result of a complex being, The universe is infinitely more complex than everything put together. So surely the thing
True.
that made it, right, must be complex,
Mhm.
like God. So then if
Yeah.
that's even more complex, who made that complex?
We don't say that it's made, because that would defeat
Why not?
the whole, because that would defeat the whole
This
definition.
is what you have
Because look, that
arbitrarily
defeats,
stopped at
because look,
God.
that defeats, no, because that defeats the whole definition of God. That doesn't become God,
Okay, so if I define a God by saying
because a
my
God is
God,
an uncreated being. A God is an uncreated being to us. That's what we believe,
you
right?
can
But
come up with any definition, but there's no
but
firstly no proof.
but all of the systems we make, right? We acknowledge that these are conscious beings that are making this. Even when we look at other animals and what they make in nature or whatever, whether it's a nest or whatever, we say there is
Right.
some form of consciousness behind these systems. So we look at the universe and we say, okay, we acknowledge it's a
That doesn't solve
system.
anything, though. Bro, that doesn't solve anything. In fact, that makes it even more difficult, because then your God is even more conscious, is a higher level of consciousness than a human being. You know, you say like, you know, we have Rahma, we have all these things, but it's only like 1% of whatever. Like Allah is even more than that. So if Allah is even more than that, He requires an even bigger like explanation, not a
I know,
smaller one. You
I know, but now we, I know, but I know, but now we're, I know, but now we're okay, but now we're, I know, but now we're delving into another conversation. All we're trying to, all we're trying to,
what you're doing is
you're
pulling a thread, and you're saying, look, there must be something. But I'm saying, well, why are you stopping at your God? Why not go even further? But you don't have an answer for that. You just said
but you don't even believe in that God. No, but you don't. I know, but you don't even believe in God. So why are we going further?
Because that's your definition. So I'm questioning your definition, because you said these are systems.
Do you believe? Okay. So do you believe that there's a creator now?
No, of course not.
Okay, so why are we going further? Why are we going further if you don't believe?
That's what you are asserting. So I'm questioning what you're asserting, because you're
so
saying
I'm asking you,
the rational conclusion to all of this is there must be some sort of creator, and I'm saying, okay, so who created the creator? And you've got no answer to that.
No, but you don't. No, but you're asking me like you believe in the creator. Why? There's no point in asking.
If I believe,
I'm asking you if it's irrational. I'm asking you if it's irrational that there's a mind behind the system. When we see a mind behind
from what I know, yes, that's my opinion.
No, I'm asking you what you. Okay, so I'm.
Yeah,
so
that's my opinion. From what I know, yes, it is.
What do you mean? Yes, sorry. Say that again.
You asked me, is it irrational to believe there's a creator? And I'm saying, from what I know, from what I understand of all the different kinds of Abrahamic creators and all this kind of stuff, morally speaking, rationally speaking, I say it is.
No, we're not talking about morally.
Whatever. This is what I'm saying. From moral perspective, scientific, rational, whatever you want to call it.
But it's
go on. Sorry, go.
But
please.
it's not. But it's not irrational. We both experience how system works, and we both experience that these systems are made by conscious beings. Mm-hmm. How then can you come to the conclusion that another system, which is more complex, came out of nothing or random, without any conscious? How do you add those two together?
So consciousness is a result, again, I don't know if you believe in this or not, but is a result of evolution. So if you don't believe in evolution, if you don't believe in these things, it's very hard for me to convince you otherwise. So it's like me trying to like argue and say, well, evolution does this, and because why do we have consciousness and not like dogs?
No, I'm not talking about consciousness. I'm talking about the system. I'm talking about the natural system that we see in nature.
Yeah.
That is a system. You agree that is a system.
I don't know how you're using this word system, because again, these things, if you're talking about like, I don't know, like patterns or what we describe as patterns or what we describe as systems, but these are human things. Like, for example, an atom is not called an atom. We've given it that name. In nature, there's no such thing as the word atom. You see what I'm saying?
But I just showed you. I just showed that there is an ecosystem.
These are what our human beings use to describe what they see around us. And yes, there are ecosystems, all this kind of stuff.
But that is a system. That is the definition of system. How do we get a system without a conscious being behind it?
So you would have to. Okay. So do you believe in evolution?
Not macro evolution.
Okay. So you don't believe human beings and apes have a common ancestor? Not that human beings come from apes, but we have a common ancestor. You don't believe in that, any of that kind of stuff?
I haven't seen that. No.
I didn't ask if you saw it, because I didn't see it as well. But based upon all the science.
Why do you believe it? Why do you believe it if you haven't seen it?
So it's based upon science. So this is experimentation. For example, 98 or 99% of the human DNA is exactly the same as a chimpanzee. I'm just saying.
But
If
how
God
do you
did-
know that's true? How do you know that's true?
Okay, if you want to get into like, if you go to a doctor, how do you know? If hang on,
Religious people are asked. Religious people are asked all the time. How do we know God exists?
hang on. If you go to a doctor and he says
Yeah.
to you, I'm not saying you have. Let's say, for example, I have cancer. Okay, if I go to a doctor and he says, okay, sorry man, you bad news, you got cancer because we did this test and you know, I'm like, how do you know, bro? How do you know? How do you know how do you know I've got cancer? They're like, well, we did this test, we got this method. How do you know? How do you know? So when people say, how do you know? How do you know? When you accept doctors, their opinion on whether someone is ill and whether it's coronavirus or this kind of stuff. You know,
hold on.
The same scientist and the same scientific method has said evolution has happened. You don't say, oh, how do you know? How do you know? So I'm saying, if you're going to take modern medicine, which is based upon evolution as well, then you have to take evolution as a whole. You can't pick and choose when you want to.
I know, but atheists ask us, how do we know all the time?
We have a scientific method. You have faith. There's a big difference.
No,
you say
I'm asking you, how do you? So are you saying you have faith in scientists?
No, we have a method which is proven.
But who's we? You're not a scientist. Who's we?
Human beings, scientists.
You said we. You said we. That includes you.
Yeah, scientists. I'm telling you. So, I feel like this is one of the, I've had these conversations with Muslims so many times, and it's the same roundabout argument.
I think it's fair if atheists ask us, how do we know? It's fair to ask you guys, how do you know?
And I'm telling you, there's such a thing as called the scientific method, which scientists from all over the world use, and based upon this method, they try and disprove or prove their own theories. So I can be a scientist and say, I think the world works this way. So once I put that theory out there, or hypothesis, really, that's the correct term, hypothesis out there, other scientists will try and disprove it, right? That's the best way, because if you say, oh, I think 1 + 1 is 3, and I disprove it, actually, you're wrong, it's 1 + 1 is 2, right? Whatever it is. So other scientists use the scientific method, try and disprove my hypothesis. If my hypothesis is provable, is repeatable, then it becomes a theory. Not in the common word theory, but in a scientific way, in a scientific parlance, language, it becomes theory. So based upon these theories, we then draw upon our understanding of the world. And a lot of modern medicine is based upon evolution and other things as well. So I'm saying, when you say, how do I know? Like, oh, if apes, I didn't see it, but you didn't see the first doctor who cured or who found out cancer. You didn't see that, but you still believe cancer.
I just think it depends how we're using the term "know," right?
Okay, that's fair enough. So I don't personally know. Like, I didn't go into the laboratory where evolution was discovered.
If you don't know, then that just means you believe.
So I have a very good, educated, you could say, understanding of the world. Belief, you can say belief if you want. You can say belief, but my belief is not blind belief. That's the difference.
This is the thing. If you don't know, how do you know it's not blind?
So are you saying that we can never know anything? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that.
So let me ask you then. How do you know?
It depends how we define no. It depends how we define no.
So I'm asking you, how do you define no?
Because
you're the one that's questioning these terms. So how do you know? How do you know Muhammad existed? How do you know there was an angel in a cave that he spoke to Muhammad? You weren't there.
No, it's a belief. That's why Islam is a belief system.
So it's not even it's a belief. It's faith. You weren't there. You're just saying you believe that because your parents told you that, and their parents told you that.
You do know. God says in the Quran, all over the Quran, "Oh, you who believe."
Yeah, clearly.
So
so that's fine.
So we're believers. No one claims to know.
I understand that. No, it's quite clear you believe stuff because you're not basing it on rational arguments. You're basing it on belief.
No, believing that we're created is not irrational. Why is that irrational?
If you believe it based upon a book that was 1400 years ago created or written, whatever you want to call it, by a man who had no scientific literacy or any literacy for a matter of fact, then it is irrational. Sorry to say, it is irrational. If you're basing it upon him, because you're not basing it upon anyone else. You're not basing it upon like a modern scientist now who's saying actually there might be a chance, like a 2% chance. You're not basing it on that. You are basing it upon a man 1400 years ago who said he spoke to angels in a cave. That is irrational. There's no way. There's no getting around that in a rational hypothesis. Like this. I'm sorry to say, bro. There is no getting around that.
If you don't believe in prophets, then it is irrational. Obviously, if you don't.
If I don't believe in fairies, then I mean, would you? I can't respond to that in any way. Like if I say, oh, if you don't believe in fairies, then you're not going to believe my story. Well, obviously, if I don't believe.
No, I'm saying if you don't believe in prophets, then of course it's irrational to you.
Yeah, and the idea of prophets is irrational, especially given the fact that these guys were around when thousands of prophets were around. Not only like I'm talking about like, you know, thousands of prophets mentioned in the Quran, I'm talking, or even alluded to in the Quran. Like prophets then were like very normal. There were many prophets at the time of Jesus, many prophets at the time of Muhammad who were competing. They had their own, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Like it was nothing. It was like as prevalent as there are many YouTubers, like as many YouTube channels, there were so many prophets who were competing with different prophecies. And the most successful one, the most charismatic leader, the one who maybe had a good military model or a good like charisma or different ways of whatever being successful, they were the ones that we know about now. Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, all this kind of stuff. So it is very irrational to base your whole worldview upon a guy who came 1400 years ago with no scientific literacy, who claimed he spoke to angels. You didn't see it. None of the people around him saw it. And then you're saying, oh, if I disbelieve there's no creator, that's irrational.
Did I claim to have seen it? Did I claim to have seen it?
That's why I'm saying it's irrational. That's why I'm saying it's irrational.
It's a belief system. The whole religion is a belief system.
Okay, it's a belief system. Do you think it's irrational? Because
you who believe.
Yeah, I know that. But I'm saying, do you think it's irrational, that belief system?
No, it's not irrational. Why is it irrational?
Based upon what? Based upon what? Where's the rationality in this? A guy 14 years ago in a cave says he spoke to angels, that God spoke to him, and then you say, yeah, bro, he's right, man. He's right.
I mean,
where's the rationality?
It's a belief. It's a belief system.
I know that. Where's the rationality in it? Because I asked you, is it rational? You said yes. Now, where's the rationality? Okay,
so the rationality starts with believing in a God to begin with, that we were created. Number one.
Bruv, you've skipped. You where? Don't skip.
I'm going there. I'm going there. So
when a guy says in the cave, I spoke to an angel. Oh, that's rational.
I'm going there. So it all starts off actually with a person using his rationality to begin with. That if like as a Muslim, I believe that we were created, and it's rational to believe so, that we didn't come from nothing. Okay. That's so
let's
go
back to the guy in the cave who was there for 40 days, not eating, no nothing.
So I'm coming there. So I'm coming there. So the person who now believes that a God that a God exists would now start looking for the truth. And
bro, I'm sorry. You're not going to find truth in a cave speaking to angels. Come on.
Let me get there.
Let me land. You can do better than that. You can do better.
Let me land.
You can do better. I believe you, bro.
So a person who comes to the conclusion that a God exists will now obviously go in search of information to see maybe where or how we came into existence. Okay. And that's how a lot of people become Muslim.
So you say So the first part I can completely understand. You think this world has a creator. That in itself, I'm not attaching that belief to Muhammad or Quran or Bible. That in itself, you think there must be something. Okay, that's an interesting belief. That's a respectable belief. Now, if I were to prove that belief, the last person I'm going to go to is a guy 1400 years ago in a cave. I'm going to go to the most modern technology, most modern science, most educated person on the planet and say, what do you think? What's the data showing? Not some guy 40 years ago, oh, there's a jinn, there's a thing, there's a Jahannam.
So if someone believes that there's a God, are you telling me that a God can't give a message wherever he wants?
How would you even prove something like that?
Technically
speaking, yeah, God can give a message to anyone, and that's why there've been so many false prophets, so many false. Exactly, but Muhammad's could have been a false prophet. There's no way.
No, you keep saying 1,400 years in a cave, like that's so, like that dismantles something. It doesn't dismantle anything.
It does.
Why?
Because if you go back to 1,400 years ago, what was the scientific literacy back then? It was zero. It's like me going to Muhammad and saying, "How do I use the internet?" He doesn't know. It doesn't exist. The scientific method didn't even exist back because people didn't even discover it. So if I go to him and say, I'm not using Muhammad's example. It could be Jesus, it could be Moses, it could be anyone from any part of the world in any religion. I'm not trying to pick on Islam only because whatever. But if I go to someone back 2,000 years ago and say, you tell me how the universe works, bro. Despite the fact that I've got more information on my fingertips than he has. Why am I going to him? He should be coming to me and saying, how does it work? He's not a prophet. He doesn't know how the world works. He has a very limited understanding of the world because people back then had a very limited understanding, didn't have that much knowledge. People were not that well educated, so on and so forth. I'm sure you know the arguments. So why am I going to go to him and ask him, bro, how do I live my life? How does the world work? Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? What is the purpose of existence? Why am I going to go to him? You wouldn't even use a phone that was around 15 years ago because it's out of date. It doesn't have the most modern stuff on it. Yeah, I'm going to base my life on someone who's 14 years ago in a cave. You wouldn't even buy a phone that was 10 years old or 20 years old. Oh, it's out of date. It doesn't have the color. It doesn't have this. But my whole life.
I know, but you're saying cave.
Existence.
I know.
Okay,
but
fine.
You're saying cave.
Forget cave. Like, it could be anywhere. It could be in a field. It could be.
That doesn't dismantle anything.
What I'm trying to say is, it could be in a cave. It could be on a mountaintop. It could be in a field. It could be anywhere. The most important thing is, in that era, scientific knowledge of the world was literally minimum, if not zero. And now you're saying I'm going to base my life upon what he said.
I know, but when you say basing your life, a lot of people live their life through morality. It's not through science. Science just tells you how the world, how nature works.
Okay, that's interesting. So then, would you say what the Prophet said about reality is false because he wasn't a scientist?
I never said it was false.
Okay, so don't dodge the question. You believe your existence of reality is based upon his understanding. Just be honest about it, bro. I mean, listen.
Well, I never said I never said I didn't believe in him.
But he wasn't a scientist. He didn't know. So why are you believing in that part?
How do you know he didn't know?
Allahu Akbar. So the Quran is now the scientific.
You're making the claim. You're making the claim.
So where's the proof that he was a scientist? Where's the proof he was a scientist?
No. You just made a claim. You said he didn't know.
He didn't know.
Okay, prove it.
Bro, have you his understanding of the world in the Quran about how the sun rises, about how the universe works, whether it's the hadith and how the stars.
Science is not absolute. You're making it seem like science is absolute.
Well, actually, a scientific method and facts are absolute. Yes, they are.
No, they're not absolute. They're not absolute. Science changes. Science changes every time.
This is wrong. I've got to stop there. Our understanding might not be 100% accurate, but science in itself, like the molecules, the atoms, whatever you want to call it, that's the same. That is what it is. Now, if I understand it, like if I have the best way I can give you an example is, say, for example, I have a camera from 20 years ago. It has a certain amount of megapixels. So it takes a picture of let's say a bird. It has it's okay. It's not bad. But then 20 years later, you have 720 HP. So it becomes more accurate. So our understanding of that bird or the world is more accurate, not less accurate. So if anything, science, our understanding of the world is becoming more and more and more accurate, not less accurate.
That you just proved my point. It's not absolute. You just proved my point.
No, our technology is always improving, but the science itself, how the world works, is the same. Do you understand?
It's the same. I'm talking about our understanding, of course. Yeah. Our understanding is never something that is set in stone.
So do you think a scientist, let's say 500 years ago, is more accurate compared to a scientist now? Which one do you think?
Depends who's got more knowledge.
So which one do you think has more knowledge?
Time is irrelevant. Time is
very relevant because the more time you have to work on something, the more knowledge you get on it. If
were there people 500 years ago that were more knowledgeable than people today? Of course there are.
In what?
In science.
They might be cleverer, but they don't have more knowledge. No, because we have way more knowledge. Are you having a laugh? The amount of information we
I'm not talking about we. I'm talking about there are people who are quote unquote what you call pseudoscientists that you could say people 100, 200 years ago had more knowledge than them. Like time is irrelevant when it comes to knowing something.
I'm sorry, bro, but time is very relevant. Not even in any like field of work, whatever you want to call it. The more time you have to work on something, the more knowledge you get, the more stuff you find out. The more things you find out. Actually, this wasn't true, or this is true, or this is more accurate, or this is a waste of time. Like for example, if you work on a if I can get it out of my mouth on a dissertation. That's for a PhD. Are you telling me that you know more about it from year 1 compared to year 4?
No,
you can know more about it from year 4, right? Because you've had more time to read, you've got more time to speak to people, research. The same way, we know more now than we know 100 years ago. In 100 years' time, we're going to know more then than we know now. So a scientist now has more available to him, right, to understand how the world works compared to a scientist 100 years ago and 100 years before that. And so when you talk about people 1400 years ago, 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, telling us how the world exists or came into existence, I'm like, really? You're gonna take their perspective, their limited perspective of the world, or their understanding of the world, on how the world works, when we have more information now on how the world works, and how the human mind, the human body works. You've got way more information on how that stuff works. So if you really are interested in the truth, however you want to define it, or interested in finding out how the world works, ecosystem, whatever system, I would go to the people now. I'm not earning my ecosystem from the Prophet or Sahaba. That's crazy.
No, just because someone tells you something, even a scientist, like it all goes back to how do you define knowing something?
Okay, so then
It all
do you
goes back
think?
to how do you define? If you open a science book, you can't tell me you know something to be true.
The thing is, bro. The thing is, I really, and I've seen this before from Muslims and Christians. I don't want to pick on Muslims. When I say scientists know this and scientists know that, they say, "Oh, how do you know that? How do you know what even real knowledge is?" Okay, very good question. So when the Prophet said X, how do you even know that? We don't even know him. We don't even know, bro.
Like I said to you from the beginning, we both just have to, and we both just have to be honest and say we believe in what we read. That's all we have to do. You open a science book.
That's a very dishonest way of painting the picture, because
hold on. So you're telling me if you open a science book, you know it's true?
No. So are you asking me if I know it's true?
Yeah. So if you open a science book and you read it, so it's a belief. You open it, you read it, and you believe it.
There's a massive difference between the way I believe and the way you believe. With my belief, let's put it that way, there's always a healthy level of skepticism. So actually right, like I said, going back to that picture, if a camera takes a picture 20 years ago, it might not be accurate as the camera that takes a picture now. So there's always room for improvement. So I am happy. I'm happy to say, actually, what I believed 10 years ago isn't true. I don't feel like, oh my God, man, I failed, or science doesn't exist, or it's all failure. No, I think it's a progress that we are getting more and more accurate. But your belief has stuck 1400 years ago, and it hasn't progressed. That's the difference.
No, it's a religion. It's a religion. It's a way of life.
I know it's a religion, bro. That's why it's irrational.
A religion, yeah.
I know.
It's irrational to you. It's subjective.
It's just irrational full stop. I don't know. It's irrational full stop. Because none of it is based on rationality and reason and logic. It's based on some guy said this because he spoke to God, and that's the end of that.
Well, it's just an opinion.
I know Muslims and Christians want to paint their religious books or leaders as if they're some sort of like massive philosophers or like, scientists. They weren't. There were guys in the Middle East that were like, yeah, God spoke to me, bro.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's not much more. Like, there's nothing more I can add to that.
No, I know. I'm just saying it's a way of life. It's. I know I've taken a lot of your time today.
Honestly, listen, bro. If I say something wrong or I don't want to talk about. Please.
No, not at all. It was a good conversation. It was a good conversation.
I think the first. No, actually not the first, second, I think. But one of the first Muslims to be on this chat. So I don't want you to feel like, oh man, Veedu's an idiot. I wasn't trying to.
Not at all. It did get a good. No.
I remember your voice. I remember your voice.
It was a good convo. It was a good convo. I hope you enjoyed it.
I appreciate that, bro. Honestly, and I would love to have you back on again. So take care, and I will see you very soon, inshallah.
Definitely.
All right, bro. Take care, man.